Okay. Hi, I'm Brian. I'm also in Vivek Kumar's lab, and I'm a software engineer. And I'm going to be talking about who's who, tracking multiple mice over multiple days. So, what's the challenge? The challenge is we have these long-term videos of mice moving around and interacting. And a lot of the experiments that we've been running spanned multiple days. So we typically have 3 to 4 mice over the course of 4 consecutive days, and that data is recorded continuously. So there's been, as a lot of people are familiar with in this field of video-based behavioral assays, there's been a lot of there we go. There's been a lot of kind of other papers that talk about markerless pose estimation and whatnot. So there are kind of 2 really big papers that came out kind of early last year, one being sleep and one being multi-animal deep lab cut. And both of these papers propose to solve this problem of multi-animal tracking without markers using deep neural networks. But what they don't really advertise, and what came out in a kind of commentary paper at the same time that these came out, is that despite their successes, there's an important limitation that both of these models don't maintain identities of animals throughout the entire experiment. So what really is going to happen with our data is as the mice are walking around and interacting, identities may swap, and you can't preserve that identity very well over time. So kind of just visually looking at that, when we have kind of these 3 mice interacting, let's say the blue one and the red one meet up, these models can't really disentangle them after they kind of interact for a bit and then separate again. So the challenge is that we really need to resolve to use these tools to do long-term behavioral analysis is we need to solve the problem of long-term reliability, where we need to be able to handle data with multiple days and not have cascading errors associated with them. Additionally, these models tend to work the least when there's no visual information. And anyone who's worked with mice in a research context know that they like to crawl over and under each other. And that provides a very difficult challenge for the algorithms to solve because it can only really predict on what they see. There's been a lot of talk about how to predict poses, and there are kind of 2 dominant methods. One is top-down and one is bottom-up. For top-down, typically you detect all of the objects and then you try and predict pose on them. While bottom-up, you try and predict all of the key points and then assemble them into objects. So just visually, this is kind of a example of how bottom-up will be solved. So you have an input frame. You predict both what key points belong to which instance, as well as which key point is which. And then you can fuse those together into individual instances. In contrast, what you can do with top-down is first you predict where the object is, and we happen to find that segmentation based detection is better than bounding box predictions for lab animals. Then you take that prediction, you mask it, and then you predict key points on that mask. So it's kind of a 2-stage problem. But this does not yet resolve the issue of really solving identity. So how do we do that? Well, the first step is something that these approaches already, both deep lab cut and sleep already apply, and they do kind of this proximity-based centroid tracking. where if you look at mice and you watch them over time, generally they don't teleport. It's not a thing that mice can do. So if they only move a short amount of distance, then we can say that that is the same mouse. This works really well when the mice are separate, but it starts to fall apart when the mice are overlapping each other. So while they're separated, you can use this proximity-based approach to be able to make these short tracklets, is what the field calls them. And that will describe the trajectory of mice while they're separated. However, once we get to these interactions, we need to be able to disentangle which mouse is which. So we've actually applied a self-supervised approach where when we know that we can do some clever sampling where within an individual tracklet, we can sample 2 frames from that and say that these are the same identities. And if there's another tracklet that overlaps in time, we can sample another frame from that and say, this is a different identity. This is a different mouse. And what we can do is we can train a network to be able to predict a space that pushes the same identities together and pushes the different identities apart. So essentially at random initialization, we would expect kind of random distribution of examples. But over the training process, we can see that the same identities will kind of group together, and then the different identities will be much further apart in this space. What we do is we can use pose information. We just sample a square sub-region surrounded around the mouse, and since we know where the mouse's nose and tail are, we can orient it so that it gets a very kind of standardized input format. With that, as I said, over the training process, we really expect that when we sample kind of in this tracklet, this frame, and in this tracklet, this frame, we'll kind of see that they're close in space. And essentially, we can use kind of just distances within this embedded space to be able to predict which mouse is which over the course of many hours worth of video. So how well does it actually work? So here's a render of the same 4 mouse video over time. And you can see that the mice are interacting. And when they actually get close to each other, I believe very shortly, yeah, the red and green mouse just walk by each other. That's normally where the other algorithms would start guessing as to which is which. Here again, the purple and blue mouse were just interacting very closely. But our algorithm is able to kind of resolve all of those issues. And we've observed kind of over very large timescales, including 4-day experiments, that we have very good preservation of identities. So how does that look over time? So we hand annotated 6 different videos of 10 minutes duration each, just following the identities of mice over time. And these are a variety of different metrics. All of these metrics, the higher number is better. 1.0 for all of them is perfect. So as you can see, the first 2 videos are during the light phase, the inactive phase when mice are generally sleeping. And you can see that our performance is a bit lower than perfect, but it's generally very good. In the field, MOTA is a multi-object tracking accuracy, and that's generally penalized for 3 different terms. So it's kind of an aggregate method that includes precision recall and accuracy. In the dark phase, when the mice are active, these are a lot easier videos, and we'll get back to them in 2 slides. But next, I just wanted to kind of wrap back to the top-down versus bottom-up approach, just to show these same metrics for top-down versus bottom-up. So we've found that the top-down approach does better across all these metrics for our 10-minute validation clips. Yeah, so they're still kind of within the same ballpark, but you can see that the variance has decreased quite a bit when using the top-down approach. So on to kind of the last important results. So these are uh, essentially identity blocks where we're making predictions on every single pose that exists. And for an easy video, you can see that when most of the mice are separated, that we make the correct call almost all the time. However, when the mice are allogrooming, which is a certain behavior where the mice are interacting with each other very closely. In fact, one mouse is kind of generally over another mouse. You you see a whole lot more confusion. However, once they separate again, we've preserved identities. Um, so that's an easy video where we can see that they are interacting and they separate again and the identity works. However, for the harder videos, when the mice are sleeping in the pile, it's a lot more difficult to actually disentangle the correct identities. However, when they do separate again, we are getting the correct identities. And you can kind of see that with larger blocks of the correct color. So in summary, segmentation-based top-down pose networks seem to work the best for mice. The inactive phase is difficult due to the close proximity and pose quality concerns. And a learned identity is necessary to prevent this long-term identity swapping. And if you happen to have a large data set, the identity embedding can be pre-trained on a large, diverse data set. There are other approaches in literature that involve online systems, but that requires a model to be trained per experiment. And that's it. So thanks for listening.
Thanks very much.